Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Hengel. I'm a director at OpenGeoHub, and we have a very interesting webinar today for you. I think you can see my slides already. Beatrice, my slides are visible.
Yes, all good.
So we have two talks. We have a 1 hour exactly for this webinar, and we have two talks by Leandro Parente and Daniele Dare. We will start with Daniele Dare, but I just want to say a bit about this project and also about this topic, the modeling with the census data. We will start with Daniele Dare. First, he will do a bit of introduction to census data and statistical methods. Daniele has a interesting last name. If you type it wrongly, you cannot find him anymore. So it's not Amon Ra or something, but it's De Dare. Leandro is more simple, let's say. And Leandro will talk about production of the predictions of livestock for the whole world using subnational data. And after we finish this webinar, we are going to prepare the videos and publish them on TIB, where we usually publish, and then the videos also get the DOI, so you can watch them after if you maybe miss something. There's no need to write anything down, take screenshots, because as I said, there will be video, and also I just share the slides with you so you can follow the slides from your own desktop. There is also a publication, but I want to announce that this publication is still in review. So please, disclaimer, use data use only for testing. There are still revisions being made. We just got reviews back. We are working on revisions, and we are happy with the reviews, and so we continue. We hopefully the paper and dataset will be made publicly available within 1 or 2 months. This work has been produced as part of the Global Pasture Watchcon project within the consortium, consists of multiple partners spanning multiple continents, which is also part of a bigger project called Land Carbon Lab, which is run by the World Resources Institute. And OpenGeoHub has been leading production of a couple of components, specifically livestock density maps being produced by our colleague here, Leandro. He was leading that, but we also produce grassland extent maps, short vegetation height maps, and grassland productivity maps. All this data is available as open data under CC BY license, and also there is a GitHub. There's a GitHub homepage where you can find all the code. So not only you can access the data, you can also see how the data was produced. Personally, I'm really fascinated with census data. I work with more than 10 census data sets, and what I really find fascinating, this is an example. USGS created a pesticide national synthesis project. This is all this data collected bottom up from municipalities or even smaller units. So they collect it, and what you see is just tabular data, almost 7 million rows. So it's just a tabular data where you have some county code and you have some measurements, low and high, of the emissions pesticide distribution. And so what I find fascinating that I managed to make a little code and then also mask out agriculture areas. And within 1 hour I created this animation in QGIS. And it's really magical that you go from this abstract tabular data and suddenly you can see this. In this case, you see in US in the Corn Belt, you can see really increasing use of pesticide, unfortunately, through the time going from 2000 to 2020. And with this, without further ado, I want to pass on the floor to Daniele Dare. Please, Daniele, just keep it to 25 minutes. And if you have a question for Daniele, you can immediately write in a Q&A, and then we will answer after both webinars. We are going to answer the questions. Please, Daniele, take it.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks for inviting me to give this presentation. My name is, next slide, please. My name is Daniele Dare. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Mac Foundation in Italy. I work mostly on spatial modeling and species distribution modeling at the interface between ecology and epidemiology, as my main interest is modeling vector-borne diseases and insect vectors of these diseases. But especially during my PhD, I worked extensively on downscaling approaches for aggregated livestock counts over different areas and continents. So that's why today I'm gonna give you a brief introduction about census data and downscaling approaches. Next, please. So first of all, what are census data? So census is a data collection where we try to collect single individuals into a defined area. And you might be familiar with that because example are population count maps or population age maps, income, average income, and so on. And this kind of information are generally collected by National Statistical Agency, such as Istat, for example, in Italy, or the US Census Bureau in the United States, but also by international organizations like Eurostat or FAO, for example. And in essence, we try to assign individual information to different geographical administrative areas that we call NATS. So like, for example, NATS 1 is at the national level, NATS 2 is what in some areas we call regions, for example, and so on, the villages or neighborhood, and so on. Next slide, please. And this is an example of a map of population density collected by Eurostat at NATS 2 level. And we see that already this map provides you some kind of information about the spatial distribution of our phenomenon of interest, which is in this case population density. Next. But why we aggregate the data using administrative units? Well, there are several reasons, and one of this is standardization, because we can collect this information over the years and report them over predefined spatial units. And this aligns well with political and administration decision-making processes. And in addition, it also protects privacy of the individuals. Next. Well, we have indeed some pros, which is this information are easy to collect and manage. And we can have a standard comparison over time, even though administration boundaries might change within the same country, but also between countries. For example, in 2006 in Europe, we have the division between Serbia and Montenegro. Still is a way that we use to keep this information light with policymakers. On the other hand, we lose something. We lose the description of the spatial heterogeneity of the phenomena of our interest, and within the polygons. And we can also create some artificial boundaries describing the spatial distribution of our phenomena. Next. So why do we want to downscale this kind of data? Well, essentially to improve the spatial resolution and the representation of this phenomena, and so refine it to a grid level that has a higher spatial resolution. And this would also help to disseminate this information because the administrative units are arbitrary and can vary by country. And indeed, we also create continuous spatial data that can minimize some artifacts, such as the modifiable area unit property. I will talk about that later. Next. And in addition, downscaled data product can be then combined with other gridded models that are becoming more and more used every year, and can support fine-scale decision-making because we can get a better representation of the spatial variability of our phenomena of interest and a higher spatial resolution. Next, please. So we have different methods to do downscaling, and the simplest is what we call error-weighted. And the basic concept is that given a gridded matrix, a gridded representation of the world, we can allocate evenly our spatial phenomena, our abundances, our population density, evenly within the polygon, but using the same spatial resolution. This assumes a uniform distribution of the population within each unit, and it's simple, and we don't use external variables that might lead to circularity. On the other hand, we ignore spatial heterogeneities, especially within the administrative units used. And we have an example here of the error-weighted, which is a downscaling approach, which is used for livestock, in this case, cattle. Next one, please. And the other approach, which is also the approach that I will extensively cover during this presentation, but is also that what Leandro will present later, is what we call asymmetric mapping, which essentially imply using additional information and a model to downscale the information of our aggregated aggregated information at the administrative unit level to a finer spatial resolution. And for example, what we do, we collect our census aggregated informations, we associate environmental covariates to each administrative unit, and then we train a model that can then be used to predict at a higher spatial resolution our phenomena of interest. Indeed, we get more realistic spatial distribution of our phenomena of interest. On the other hand, we might introduce circularity, especially if we use some covariates to downscale the model, and then to downscale with a model our response variable aggregated at different administrative units level, and then infer another variable using both the downscale product and the ancillary dataset as covariates. Next one, please. So to sum up, we might have different pros and cons for each approach. And just I give you here a representation, a comparison between the asymmetric and the error-weighted approach. And in general, we can see that the asymmetric approach is the one that is generally preferred by most of people, and the one that represents a better representation of the spatial phenomena of interest. And that's why also we're going to talk about it most extensively. Next one, please. So we have multiple methods in the asymmetric approach. And I think one important distinction to do is that it depends what we want to do with the downscaling approach. Do we want to have make inference, or do we want to have an accurate predictions? So if we want to go for inference, maybe approaches like geographically weighted regression, or the more complex INLA, a Bayesian hierarchical modeling approach might be preferred. And I give you here these nice books to get acquainted with these two techniques. So the books by Walker and Paula Moraga. But on the other hand, if the goal is mostly to predict something, machine learning these days is playing a major role. And for those who are not familiar with machine learning, I suggest hands-on machine learning with R. This is a text about R users, as I am. If you guys are Pythonists, I'm sure there are other nice resources, especially on the scikit-learn library. Next one, please. And still the there is huge, so the whole field of spatial machine learning is seeing a huge development these days. We have especially we have been seeing tentative to add spatial information explicitly into the machine learning algorithms, such as we have some geographical random forest examples, or using Bayesian additive regression, or also neural networks. So there's a lot going on, and still the field is growing in the recent year. There is also, next one, please. There is also this for our users, this nice CRAN task view by Roger Vivan and Jakub Novosad, where they collect a bit the state of the art about different packages and tools, resources that you can use to explore and model spatial data in R. Next, please. But I think the gridded livestock of the world project is a good example to see how downscaling approaching evolved during different years. So this is the first attempt to map the global distribution of livestock globally. And we have the first attempt in 2007 with the work done by Winter Robinson. And each GLW version has a reference year. In this case, the first GLW focused on the year 2000 and is based on regressions, essentially. As next, please, GLW2, which was developed in 2014 by Robinson and et al., and focus on stratified regression approaches. So a sort of ensemble modeling with linear regression, let's say. But starting from 2016, we start exploring the use of machine learning also for the scaling livestock data. And we have the first work of Nicolas in 2015 that then led to the GLW3 version focused on 2010. And then we have the recent release of GLW4 focused on 2015, all based on the use of random forest. The data are available on the harder Dataverse, and there is also a GLW density product that is currently under development. Next, please. This is just another example, not about livestock, but in this case, I downscaled the abundance of an alien species in Tenerife Island, in the Canary Archipelago. So there was some preoccupation about the distribution of the species in the archipelago because it's highly invasive. And using, again, a random forest model, next one, please, I downscaled the distribution of the species under the current and future climatic scenarios in order to understand better where we should prioritize the eradication efforts in the archipelago. In this case, we saw that La Palma Island, the one in the upper left, should be the one that should be more investigated and taken into account under current and future climatic scenarios. Next one, please. And yeah, indeed, there are some challenges when we do these downscaling modeling approaches. One of them is that we might get inconsistent census boundaries and different names of the same units. And so a lot of time is spent in trying to harmonize the different census together and get a common taxonomy. So it's a lot of work. Rather than the modeling itself, most of the time you spend in trying to harmonize this data set, especially since we have different administrative level available when you work at so a large spatial scales, continental or global level. And also you might have some mismatch between the ancillary data and census period. Next one. And also this may lead to what is called the modifiable area unit problem, which is a known problem in quantitative geography, where the spatial representation of some spatial phenomena might depend on the choice of the scale and the shape of the units that we use to aggregate our individual data. Next one. And this has some practical effect. So, for example, if you keep the same roughly squared shape, we see on the first line that the effect of aggregation of these individuals levels doesn't affect the mean, but indeed affect the standard deviation, while the zoning affect both, because if we change the shape of our aggregation units, we see that both the mean of the distribution of our response variable change, as well as the standard deviation. Next one. And the modifiable area unit problem might lead to ecological fallacy, in which, depending on the way we aggregate our individual data, we might have completely different relationship between variables. So we have no dependency as the first case, a negative one or a positive one as in the second and third case. So I think we can mess up a bit the representation of a phenomena depending on how we aggregate. And next one, we might think that so we have this phenomena has been usually investigated in the 80s by OpenGeoHub. There's a nice series of books about it, but also invite you to have a look to this paper by Janiski and Hu. It was an old paper from '96, but it gives a nice description of the problem and a nice introduction to the topic. Next one, but you might think this is just an academic issue, but in reality, this leads to what we call gerrymandering. So the way of manipulate the boundary of electoral districts, for example, to favor one part or a class. And this is well known in some countries, and I'll leave you here this funny YouTube video, but there are plenty of newspaper articles about it, and so if you are curious, just Google it and you'll find plenty of information. Next one, please. Indeed, what we did in the past, we also assessed if the aggregated livestock of the world data products are sensitive to the modifiable area unit problem, and we took advantage of a nice data set of chickens and ducks census collected in Thailand at districts, sub-districts, and next one, please, village level. Next one, and so this is for what from the scale aspect of the modifiable area unit problem, while from the zone aspect we took the irregular polygons, the sampling units, so the real administrative real administrative units, and also an area weighted approach, which is represent a regular representation of our sampling units. And we try to investigate user sensitivity analysis, how the our GLW product respond to these changes. Next one, please. And the first thing we see next is that if we just observed our irregular admin units, we see that changing the aggregation from villages to districts, we shrink the distribution of our response variable. And this, it gets even more notable when we compare the predictions, that we see that our predicted distribution of value will get more and more clustered around the mean. Next, please. Or the mean of the distribution. Next one. And next one, please. And yeah, something went wrong. So, okay. Next one, please. This, when we take into account also the zoning, so the fact of aggregating using a different shape, become even more evident. Where using sub-district and district level at the regular sampling administrative units, the distribution of our response variant becomes smoother. Next one, please. And this leads clearly also to different performances of the predictive algorithm. In this case is random forest, where where if we take into account the observed distribution of our variables, of our chicken and ducks distribution at different administrative units, we see how the model predicts in a different way and the spatial patterns depending on the way we have aggregated our data. And this, I think that from also a qualitative point of view, this was an important result. Next one, please. Next one. So how we can deal with MOP and how we can take it into account. Next one, please. So one of the main goals is to try to incorporate geography into our regressions. Next. And there are several ways of doing it. I just put in here some example of paper published in the past few years. Next one, please. But in general, it's good to try to explicitly incorporate this special aspect in our analysis. Maybe using generalized linear models where we have the spatial units, for example, as a spatial random factors, or again, Bayesian hierarchical modeling, such as INLA, for example. Next one, please. Also, there was this paper by nice paper by Meissner in 22, where they use partial differential equation to take this into account. Next one, please. So I'm going toward the conclusion. As for all the regression exercise, is important to assess the accuracy and precision of our downscaled product, and especially in the machine learning realm, is getting more common every year to use cross-validation and spatial cross-validation, especially when we, during the training of the model, we keep apart some areas of the training data set that have some spatial continuity. And this has shown to help the model to be less prone to overfitting. Of course, if you have data, independent data set of microcensus data, of individual level data, that would be great, and that's probably the best choice, but they are quite rare. Or from specific cases, also simulation or synthetic tests are good. The metrics used depends on the downscaling exercise, and the type of response variables are always the same: RMSE, mean absolute error square. Next one, please. What we can say, and that we saw also in this exercise, is that in general, if you train a model with smaller administrative units, you get better results. And in our case, is the blue bars that are the Pearson R between observed and predicted values. Next one, please. So, in conclusion, I hope that I try to show you that downscaling is necessary especially for dissemination and for fine-grained decision making, and that the goal of the downscaling approach matters, because it depends if you want to have inference or accurate prediction. Usually machine learning offers promise for predictive exercise, but it's important to take some assumption when we build the modeling framework, and Leandro will talk more about it now. But if the goal is inference, maybe it's also important to keep in mind hierarchical models. I think it's also good to keep in mind when we do this, when we make these products, to keep in mind the limitation related to the modifiable unit problem and circularity, because it happens. And it's also, as always, is important to validate the methodology using as much as possible independent data sets or similar strategies. Next one. Thank you for your attention. As Tom said, I'm happy to answer to some questions at the end of the talk, and I leave leave the stage to Leandro. Cheers.
Thank you, Daniele. And for our audience, for participants, please use the Q&A. You can already start asking questions for Daniele, but we will only answer after Leandro's talk. So we continue with Leandro's presentation. So please, Leandro, you can take over.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So I will present about kind of application for the census data. So how we basically producing long-term livestock dynamics using subnational data. Next slide, please, Tom. And basically that's kind of the outline of my presentation. I will just give a bit more introduction about the projects where this work is inserted, and I will basically cover livestock census data harmonization, how we did that in the context of this work, the modeling pipeline that was implemented, some of the key issues to derive livestock density. So the concept behind this potential land for livestock production, and the zonal statistics and the spatial temporal model that implemented, and we'll cover some of the highlights that we can get with the maps. And I will finish the presentation with my main takeaways and next steps. So basically, this work is inserted in the Horizon Europe project also, called Open Earth Monitor. So it's part of this project and part of the Global Pasture Watch. Next slide. And in the Open Earth Monitor, we have a use case to derive the global livestock and grassland together and integrated with the Global Pasture Watch project. Next slide. And as Tom mentioned, the Global Pasture Watch, it's a research initiative. It's a project in the context of the Land and Carbon Lab and led by the World Resource Institute, where we have several partners in a consortium of organizations developing global products for grassland, pastures, and livestock. Next slide. And basically, in this project, we have the main goal to deliver these 4 products. So a grass class map, a gross primary productivity map, a short vegetation height map. So all these products with 30 meter spatial resolution, and from 2000 to 2022. And now we are updating for 2023 and 2024. And for the livestock, it covers the same temporal range, but the spatial resolution is 1 kilometer. Next slide. One of the main, kind of really one of the ambitions and the goal that kind of drives us is really make this all the products that we do at OpenGeoHub and also in the Global Pasture Watch project with the maximum reproducibility possible. So we are really looking and looking for and pursuing like full replication and as a gold standard. Next slide. And that's basically really the goal. And this is a lot of work. So it's not just a matter to make a publication out and do some analysis. We want to make the source code available, all the reference data available, all the maps available in different platforms, and follow like cloud native formats. Also provide computational notebook and software libraries to make to actually boost the usability of the product. So that's kind of a principle that we always pursue here at OpenGeoHub in the context of the both projects. Next slide. So just to give you like an overview, we have all these 4 products ready, and for the grassland class map, it's already published. The other 3 products we are in it's under review. So, but you can access the preprint here and the maps. I will explain how to access the maps during this review process. So you can just request the form, like a form, and have access to the data. So I will explain this in the my last slides. So basically, again, we have like the short vegetation high product, grassland class extent product, and the gross primary productivity for the whole world, and focus also in grassland. Next slide. And here the main focus of the webinar, it's really a deep dive in the livestock density and how we produce the maps. And when we say about livestock density here, we are covering basically 4 livestock animals, so cattle, goats, sheep, and horse. And at 1 kilometer of spatial resolution, and we produce annual predictions from 2000 to 2022. So I will cover multiple aspects of this work. Next slide. So the first thing is, as Daniele was explaining, so the census data, the structure of the census data, so you can have for different topics. And in the context of the livestock, we are talking about like administrative units. So different levels can be a municipality, country, state level. So, and for each of these polygons, for example, that we see here, basically you have the number of animals, the livestock animals for that administrative unit. And what we see here is basically the data that we harmonized and we made available in the context of this work. So we have data that we organized by ourselves, so in the context of the Global Pasture Watch. So if you check in the case of Brazil, we took all the data from all the years and we organized this in a kind of a seamless database. So if you go in any municipality of Brazil, US, also Argentina, we have multiple years. So the whole time series that were available in the subnational agencies, it's organized in a kind of a seamless database. So together with that, we also integrated some of the open data that FAO organized during these last years of work, and also in the context of the gridded livestock of the world. And for specifically for Europe, we have data from Malek et al. So covering like goats and cattle for different countries in Europe. And for some specific countries that were kind of really small. So for example, as Lesotho, we kind of filled the gaps with the FAOStat, the national data, but for small countries. So the key message here is this: we did this work and integrated all these different sources and we provide this in a kind of a seamless database, but also considering the time step. So for every polygon, we also have the number of animals, the year, and we organize this in a very consistent way that I will explain the next slides. Next, please. So as Daniele also said, it's quite some work to do that. So, and basically this effort was conducted by Stefan Herman in the context of the Global Pasture Watch using the LuckyNet library. Actually, it's a package with different solutions in R. And here you can see some example of the work that was conducted. So downloading this from different sources, but also this ontology matching, for example, to match like different languages and taxonomy and different terms that are used to refer, for example, to the same entity. In this case here, the entity is basically the livestock animal. Next, please. And basically, all this work is available to download Zenodo. So we provided the harmonized database, kind of the same data set that I show, and also the raw data, right? So the raw data includes even like more livestock animals that we didn't use, like pigs and ducks. So because this work also we want to make available to support other modeling and exercise and studies. Also, the source code it's available at GitHub, so we can always reproduce it and also update and rerun. So once we have new data, we just run the same pipeline and we kind of organize it the way in the same structure. Next, please. So basically, that was the main input. So, and this is referred only to the number of animals. It's basically head count, right? So we have head count for different municipalities, different states, different administrative units. So, and basically that's what we see in the first box, census data harmonization. So I will cover several aspects of this pipeline. And of course, this is described in detail in the publication. So, for example, how we prepared the potential land for livestock. We explained this and how the modeling was conducted. So next slide. So specifically about the potential land for livestock, this is, as the name suggests, is the actual land that it's used in for ranchers and farmers in general, right, to really raise the livestock animals. And we did a lot of trial and error here, several attempts. And our current approach basically combines the grassland maps produced by the Global Pasture Watch with the cropland data provided by University of Maryland, the GLAD group. And we did that because several of the livestock head counts, for example, in Europe, in China, and other parts of the world, they are relying mostly in kind of crops. And so we don't have grassland mapped there, but we have a lot of uh, animals detected in the reported in the census data. So this was some way to really combine these two data sources to kind of address this issue. So when we did that from 2000 to 2022, next slide. So it's an annual mask for potential land for livestock. And one of the key advantages to use this GLAD cropland and the global pasture watch grassland map, these two data sets, they are 30 meter. So what we exactly did, we used the information of the 30 meter and we derived a fraction of land at 1 kilometer. So here you can see like an example of the cultivated grassland for the Rondônia state in Brazil. And you can see that in the brown pixels, these are basically 1 kilometer pixels where we see the fraction of grassland according to like a higher resolution map. So 30 meter. And basically we can see that the pixels that are more close to white, they have like a small proportion, and this information, we are considering this in the modeling. So that's one of the key advantages to use this 30 meter data integrated with the 1 kilometer spatial resolution modeling. So here we also have the same rationale. So we did that for cultivated grassland, natural and semi-natural grassland. So here's an example for Inner Mongolia. Next. And here it's for north of Italy. And here you can see the cropland data. So we, of course, we didn't use all the cropland because otherwise we would inflate and overestimate the area for livestock. So we created a set of rules to just considering like partial pixels, as we can see here. So only pixels with less than 68% of cropland inside of 1 kilometer grid cell were considered. So this is the rules, and the rationale is described in the publication, in the manuscript. Next, please. So, and basically during this process, we also derived kind of the types of production systems. So some of these pixels, they have both, so cropland and grassland mapped together. So we basically derived these 4 classes, what we are calling here production systems, and we also made this available through the Zenodo. So other researchers can also have access and derive further analysis using that. Next, please. So yeah, considering this, so basically we have this now the census data, and we have some way to derive the actual area for livestock. Next, please. So, and what we did, here's an example for a municipality also in Rondônia, so Cujubim. And you can see in 2020, so how the municipality looks like, so, and how the potential land for livestock looks like. So we have plenty of pixels with close to 100% of fraction, but also some pixels with like partial fractions of land, and the cattle head count. Next, please. So basically, we used this potential land for livestock that we derived to estimate the actual area for the livestock. And in this case, it's 1,661 square kilometer. And now with this information and the head count, we can derive the livestock densities. And the livestock densities here, it's basically the target variable. So we don't model directly head count, and we model the livestock density. So that's why we did all this pre-processing to organize this data in this way. So, and this is for 2020. Next. So this we did for the potential land for livestock to create this target variable and derive the livestock density. But we also did a similar approach to all the input features that we have at 1 kilometer of spatial resolution. So what we are seeing here, it's the kind of remote sensing data. This is like an NIR band from MODIS data to May, so May 2020. And basically, we took the spatial average of the pixels that are inside of this potential land for livestock. This is also makes difference because we don't want to include, for example, in this case, the values related to forest or for areas that are not exactly effectively used for livestock. And that's why we are computing in the IR over the spectral band masked. And you can see the values on the top. So once we have that, we can repeat this process for all the years that we have. In this case, we have all the years for this municipality from 2020 to 2022. And you can see exactly the same approach for 2000. Here, actually, it's wrong, but this is 2000, the last part. And you can see that in 2000, the potential land of livestock was really smaller because of due to some pasture expansion that happened, and also the forested areas in this municipality. And basically, we did the same approach, and you can see that the values are also here different. Next slide. So basically, we executed this approach that I described for more than 300 harmonized layers at 1 kilometer spatial resolution, and for more than almost 53,000 administrative units, and with various size, right? So like large polygons, small polygons. So basically, we call it this approach kind of a spatial zonal statistics. And in the end, we derived 678 data entries for modeling. So considering individual data entries in space and in time. Next slide. So basically, this was the input for the modeling. And we are, of course, we also make this available with a computation notebook, so people can also test and use this for other modeling, or for example, test different algorithms, or apply these for maybe like for local models only for South America or for specific countries. So, but here in our case, we basically use it like a global, one global model to derive the livestock densities at worldwide. And so we conducted like a sensitivity analysis for the test set, and also we did this for each livestock animal. So when we compared like different transformations and also different weights for samples, and basically in the end we are deriving the livestock densities plus prediction interval plus number of heads adjusted by the Falstat. Next slide. And just to explain part of this sensitivity analysis, the metric, the variable that we are trying to we are modeling here, it's basically the cattle density derived according to what I explained. And here we can see the heads per square kilometer. It requires like some hyperparameters for Poisson distribution. And if we apply some transformation, we basically have a different shape of the distribution that we can use regular hyperparameters in this case. Next slide. So we did several analyses, and here we can see that random forest without any transformation, it's kind of the best result. And also we have here the accuracy for all the livestock animals using the best model that we see in the table. And this analysis was conducted at polygon scale, and basically we have a R square varying from 0.43 to 0.57. Next slide. And so we used these models and we derived the maps. And one thing that it's important to explain is we model at polygon level using this zonal spatial temporal approach, but we apply the model at pixel level. So, and doing that, we were able to basically generalize at pixel level using the same covariates and features that we use to estimate the spatial statistics. So in here we can see the comparison with the so our annual livestock maps with the gridded livestock of the world, the version 4, and specifically for the head count, the last product, we kind of corrected the numbers and we adjusted the numbers to match exactly what the Falstat delivers for each country at national scale. Next slide. So we also did the prediction interval for the densities, and here we can see how the total head count on the census data compares, for example, with the predicted head count that we did per pixel, and also the predicted densities that we see here in red. And for example, for this pixel that I'm showing, it's possible to derive, to get, for example, the prediction interval, and in our case, it's 95% of probability, and derive the prediction error of one standard deviation, that it's a more narrow, and we can see these like kind of upper and lower boundary for our predictions at pixel level. Next slide. So to access the data, of course, the data will be open, available, and we will add also this in the stack in the Google Earth Engine. And this is, it's possible to request the access now using this form, because during the review process, the data is kind of under embargo, and we are also open to listen feedbacks. And so if you have any questions, or like if you see some issue in the data, you can post directly in the GitHub, and we can interact there as a kind of a sort of open community. And next slide. So basically, the main takeaways and next step. So with this work, we provide a large compilation of subnational livestock census data, and also together open framework for modeling livestock densities and derive head counts at 1 kilometer spatial resolution. So the idea here is we are doing this at global scale, but we also want to enable other researchers maybe training local models or apply some further adjustment for specific areas. Not, for example, if it's not interest to work with the FAUSTAT at global scale, it's possible to calibrate and customize this for some national areas. Also, the global livestock density and head count seems to be consistent over space and time, but we strongly suggest to really use the per pixel predictions interval for further analysis. So in the next steps now, we are adding more census data that we harmonized during the last months. So, and we will finish the first version. So we will produce a new version of the maps that I'm showing here that probably will have a more, will be produced with more data, but now major difference in patterns. So collect feedbacks for the maps and finish in the manuscript. And yeah, here I finish my presentation, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Leandro. This was excellent and on time, and thanks both of you for being on time. We have a couple of questions. I'll, for the sake of time, I'll just start shooting. So one question is from Saleh Mamoun. The 307 layers, you use covariate layers. Are they different variables or time series of several variables? Maybe you can explain a bit this covariate pool of data.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we use basically a combination. So we have some variables that are static. So for example, terrain, it's mostly static, or some long-term like climate data, so long-term temperature or long-term precipitation, they are static. But we also combine these with time series data. So the NIR data that I show, it's time series. We also have vegetation indices, and we also have some like accessibility layers. So in a nutshell, it's a combination. So we have some variables that are static, and other variables, they are time series. And we basically combine them in the same modeling framework as features.
And maybe you can also say, you know, it is a lot of data, right? Covariate layers. Even though it's, if you just have like a one variable, like a temperature or something, because when you have a time series of data, you finish working with like terabytes of data, even if it's 1 kilometer.
Yes. So when we were also looking for a way to make this available, because of course several of these layers, they are provided in different resolutions. So for example, some MODIS data, they are actually like higher resolution than 1 kilometer. So what we do, we upscale this to 1 kilometer. And other layers, they are 10 meters, 10 kilometers, and we downscale to 1 kilometer. So there is also this kind of on-the-fly adjustment to match with the same grid cell and pixel size. But we are still trying to find a way to make all this data available. But currently it's a large amount of data, so it's close to kind of 10 terabytes. So we want to make this available also to support other modelings, and the best would be the stack, but it's still some work to do that.
Let's go to the next question by Nikola Gershak. How did you overcome data imbalance, for example, regions with limited or no livestock data?
Yeah, basically, what we are doing here is we are training a global model. So all the data that we have for livestock, for example, we trained one model for each livestock animal. So we have one model for cattle, for example, and we use it all the data for all the world and for all the years. So in this case, we are not doing the modeling for every country or for every continent, but we trained this global model, and in the end, this kind of overcome the problem with the data imbalance. One thing that we would like to still test is the performance, how the performance will vary. It will change if we train local models, right? So we could have like one model for the country, and in this case, the data imbalance might be an issue. So one way to overcome that, if you go for local model, is we can have maybe some hierarchical structure and have models for one continent. So because we have data for all the continents at least.
Okay, one more question from Saleh Mamoun. About the harmonization of livestock data, because you have the FAO, FAOstat, Malek et al. Data. How was this data really harmonized? How do you prevent from data being unharmonized and then your models being basically noisy?
Yeah, basically for each data source, we basically we did different approach. So for the global pasture watch data, we actually downloaded from the source, so from the subnational, the national agencies. So and basically we harvest this data in different formats, CSV, Excel spreadsheet, and we convert that so with different taxonomy and this ontology match. And the other kind of effort is combine all these different administrative units with a seamless kind of polygon for administrative levels. So polygon, we are using GeoPackage, but polygon vectors, right? So this also was kind of major effort, but basically we have like one pipeline for every kind of data source. So for GPW, for FAO, FAOstat, and for Malek, and each of them it's with their own pipeline, but everything gets automated. So we don't want to actually make things like by hand, because we can't replicate, and we
and
still need to update this.
all the harmonization steps, they're in the code, and they're on this GitHub repo you mentioned, right? All the
Yes.
harmonization steps. So if somebody discovers some misalignment or maybe some omission, you can just report on the GitHub, and we will fix it. We have another very interesting question. How do you handle transhumans? So moving livestock to different locations during the season, summer versus winter pastures. Sometimes those can be big distances from lowlands to highlands, etc.
Yeah, that's an issue, and I would say that now we are not addressing it, because if the livestock actually move from one administrative unit to another, so this is basically this is something that it depends of how the census data is reporting, right? So in this case, we are basically relying in the number of animals provided by each administrative unit, and this is also like a similar problem if we think like about animals that are in-house or in feedlot systems, right? So kind of landless systems, they also are reported in a kind of municipality, but maybe the majority of the food is coming for other municipalities. So now that's a limitation in our approach. We are treating each municipality kind of individually without considering transitions among them.
Okay, and we have to end now. I'm sorry, but just the one thing with from Daniela's talk. We didn't apply like any other models like INLA or this geographically weighted regression. But all your data, all the data you use in modeling, it is available on Zenodo, right? And so, for example, anybody here, if you can take this data and show that you can make a higher accuracy than what we produce, we are very happy to see that. So please contact us if you use the data, if you implement INLA or whatever. And if you say, well, I actually get a better accuracy, please just contact us. We are really open to including ideas and improving this data, because it's open data. It's we're really making a data for everyone, and we want to also kickstart kind of a community for livestock modeling. And with this thing, I would like to thank the presenters. Also, I would like to thank everyone for the questions. And we have to stop now. Thank you so much. The videos will be published within 1 or 2 weeks, and then you can watch them again on our TIB channel. Thank you so much, and have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.